Hello my darlings, and welcome back to a brand new drawing video. Today I'm excited to talk to you guys about the process of my Poison Ivy redesign. Ever since I was little, Poison Ivy has always been one of my favorite all-time Batman villains and favorite female characters in Western comics at all. I love everything about her, from her powers to her origin story and her more classy aesthetic. She's had several interpretations over the years. I'm not an avid comic reader anymore, so I really couldn't tell you which one is the best. However, I will say some of her designs have been really cool over the years, and some of them have been really out there. My design I've been working on annually for the past couple years. It started in 2017 as something to celebrate Earth Day. I wanted to clue into the fact that she has a doctorate just a bit more than her previous incarnations, which don't always include or focus on that aspect that much. In 2018, I feel like I got closer to her personality, but not necessarily her sense of style. This year, I wanted to better solidify her character. If I'm going to be drawing her annually, I want to be able to revisit her design and know exactly what I'm doing from the get-go. So I started off with a basic sketch inspired by a more evocative pose I found on Pinterest and worked my way from there. If you're an old subscriber of mine, you'll probably notice that the layout's just a bit different. I recently switched over from Adobe Creative Cloud to Clip Studio Paint Pro, so I'm still learning how the program works as well as the best recording format. So something that I really enjoy doing is sketching in multiple colors. This allows me to better see and understand the construction of my pieces, so I don't always get messed up with which line goes where. In this case, I decided to sketch in contrasting pinks and blues just so I understood where everything was going, and when I would apply the line art, I would know which line art to use where. I had a lot of fun with this because for the past couple years I haven't been showing her full body, so I wanted to sort of figure out what outfits would go with her and what accessories might she wear, and I really had fun playing with her body type a bit more. Okay, now we're getting into the line art section. For this, I always do my line art in soft browns or dark grays, so it's not always a harsh black. I like to use a lot of different colors for my line arts, and I just like everything to blend together easily. Even though I do color my line art at the very end of the process, line art can also influence the way that you choose your flat colors, and I wanted everything to have a little more goldeny brown undertone to it, so a brown line art is going to help me choose those colors later on. Something that I have had a lot of fun playing with over the past couple months is doing multiple layers of line art. As you could probably tell from watching this, the line art for the rest of her body is going to be one shade of brown. I decided to go straight into a red for her hair, and her accessories and shoes are going to be a separate layer all of their own, just so it's easier for me to color them at the very end. And like I said, it's literally just to help me choose my flats. So something that I will say that's really a positive in Clip Studio Paint is I really like their inking brushes. They're a lot smoother and less pixelated than Photoshop's brushes, so it was really nice playing with a smooth surface. And now we're adding in the final details for her line art. I'm deciding to go with leaf motifs because she is Poison Ivy and plants are her signature. So I'm using a dark green for the line art at the moment, just so I could differentiate between her body and her accessories. And last but not least, I couldn't forget those signature green glasses. The flatting process in Clip Studio Paint went by at least 75% faster than on Photoshop. Clip Studio Paint has this thing where it has a smart paint bucket. So if you section off an area, you can just put the paint bucket tool there and they will immediately fill it in. It's not the most perfect right now, but I had a lot of fun just filling in color and not having to worry about it later. Something I had a lot of fun, just as a quick detail before I begin the shading process, is adding those green freckles. Oh my goodness, I absolutely adore freckles on people, especially gingers. It just looks so good. so good and pretty, and I figured, you know what, she's a plant lady. Her freckles are going to be a little more green, and I wanted to just keep it a little more subtle than before, just to tie everything together. And right now, as you can see, I am working on the plant background. I didn't want her to be floating in space, so I just added a couple of Venus flytraps as well as some other spiky plants just to say, hey, plant lady. So my shading process is kind of weirdly complicated and I don't know how to simplify it. Something that I like to do is I like to layer up different shades of like either purples or browns just so I can sort of glaze on the colors in multiple layers. So where you see the shadows, there's going to be multiple shadow layers, and where you see highlights, there are multiple highlight layers. It's complicated, but it looks pretty, and it's the best way I can blend everything out. I don't know if that's the most fluid way to do it possible, but it's been working for me for the past couple years, so hey, I will keep it. And so here we are adding in the final details for her body. Something that I did was earlier I sectioned off different parts of her body so I wouldn't have my brush overlapping into areas I didn't want to. As a final little signature touch that is totally me and not necessarily the most realistic thing on the planet is adding that bright yellow rim lighting. I decided that I'm going to have pure saturated colors as little color motifs just so I could tie everything together. It just makes the picture pop in a really gorgeous way and I absolutely adore it. Lastly, I'm going to start coloring the line art for the skin. I decided to choose a brown red for it, something that's really similar to the darkest shadow, but maybe just a tiny bit darker, just to make the line art sort of blend into the colors. I have a lot of fun drawing and shading eyes. I think eyes are my favorite part to do besides the skin, and I had fun with that. I decided to go in with a stark green for her hair simply because green and red are complementary colors. Again, I sectioned off parts of the hair so I wouldn't have my brush overlapping into areas I didn't want to, and I just began sectioning off the hair. At first I just went in with that bold green and sectioned off the darkest shadows, and now I'm adding in the finer details with a thinner brush. I've been shading with a watercolor brush, by the way, and that's how I get all of my painterly strokes. And now I'm going in with the yellow, but now it's on an overlay. And now we're switching over into a new section. I'm just repeating the process just to make everything look the same. Instead of creating new layers, I'm just going back and forth between the layers I already have with the same brushes in the same order so I can make the hair flow together nicely. We are almost done with the hair. By the way, hair and skin are always the hardest things to do because lighting has to be determined by the skin and then the hair has to follow suit, and there's always those extra strands. And now we're going in with the fully saturated yellow as both the rim lighting and also some extra highlights just to make everything a little more coherent and stand out and blend together. Just a rinse and repeat of the process so far, just because I like things to look a certain way and it just feels a little more me, you know? I really love adding highlights. It just makes the hair look a lot more realistic, and hair is so reflective of light in general. So it was fun having the yellow show up in her hair in multiple areas. And now I am just adding some gradients to the line art just to make everything blend in together a bit more. And finally, we're onto the dress. The dress and clothing in general don't really reflect that much light. They more show off the form of your body. So there's less highlights to deal with, and there's actually less shadows to deal with as well, even in wrinkles. So for this I had a lot of fun with because I gave her such a curvy body to begin with. I just wanted to have everything sort of cling off of her body in a more form-fitting and flattering way. So I'm going in with my reds just to sort of pull everything together in the same color palette. Sticking with the same color palette in general is a really good way to make sure all of your colors are a bit coherent to begin with. And right now I'm just going in with various shades of yellows to sort of show off the wrinkles as well as adding in that signature rim lighting. This was a lot of fun to do because fabric in general is just so pleasing to me. I just have a lot of fun doing art. And now I'm going in with some really simplified shading for the shoes. I could have made the shoes a lot more shiny, especially because I'm pretty sure the accessories are made out of like more golds and metals, but keeping it simple, especially for these small details, works the best as far as streamlining a process goes. Besides that, I really didn't want the accessories to stand out that much. If you make them too shiny or have too much detail, they kind of take away from the rest of the piece as a whole, so simplifying it makes it a little more coherent. And now I'm coloring the final line art for the accessories just to make everything blend together better. I had a lot of fun with this piece and all the tiny details. Speaking of a tiny detail, now we're on to the glasses. The glasses are a lot of fun for me because I love glasses in general, so I'm adding in a transparent layer of yellow over top of the line art layers, and I'm just sort of coloring the line art for the glasses as I go, making everything, again, blend together perfectly. I absolutely forgot to color the line art of that leaf earlier, so I'm doing it now. And now I'm adding in the pure saturated yellow as my highlight once again. And now we're onto the background. The background didn't take too much time to do, and it was the very last thing I thought of. So I didn't want her to just be floating in space, even though she has plants behind her. So I decided to create some geometric patterning just to make everything seem a bit more complete. And so I'm doing these white triangles at the moment to sort of ground her on the page a bit better. And besides that, it looks really cool. So I'm just adding those diamonds in to fill up the page and actually give her some grounding without making an entire environment for her. I think geometric patterns are really cool. I'm really into Art Deco and Nouveau, so it was fun playing with that. I'm just placing the diamonds around, making sure everything is symmetrical. I miss having the rulers and the guides on Photoshop, I will say that, but I think I made everything work to my advantage, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. And I believe after getting everything done, we are going to move into the coloring of the plants because I didn't want the plants to be flat as well, so I decided to go with some very super simplified shading. So the plants looked a bit more three-dimensional too. I decided to keep things a little more subtle with the plants because I didn't want them to take away from the complexity of Poison Ivy herself. I like having that strong contrast in values, and I figured I would be able to keep that by just keeping things simple. So now I'm just throwing on colors at the moment just to make the plant seem a little more well-defined. And then last but not least, I am adding in a gradient so the plants are a little more blended in. Gradients add such subtle details to a piece. Adding them in helps with directional lighting as well as sort of making things blend together better. Blendability seems to be the name of the game. And now I'm adding in just some final details to finish the piece off. I'm really happy with the way it looks right now, and with a change to the colors and the geometric pattern, we are done. I am so super proud of this, guys. You have no idea. This was a lot of fun to do, and I'm really happy with the result. It's probably the best Poison Ivy I have drawn, period. And especially in this style, I am just, there's so much really good with it. I am very proud of myself. And I'm excited to draw again next year for Earth Day. Hopefully this time I'll be able to do it on time. Usually I can't because I'm either in school or work, but regardless, I look forward to drawing her again next year as sort of my own little personal annual tradition that I can share not only with you guys, but also me. It's a guilty pleasure for me, and I think that's the most important bit. Anyway, thank you so very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Take care, guys. Love you, munches. Bye.